All I remember is that Barry and I were talking about doing something, writing something together. And we sat down in his office and I told him my ideas, and then he told me his ideas, and we both hated each other's ideas. So then I said, well, I have a little idea about something or other, and he said, oh, I kind of like that, and there was Lost Highway. I think it had to do, one of my ideas had to do with the Mystery Man, and at that party, that kind of feeling. I also had a whole thing of this character of Mr. Eddie. By talking and talking and you know, it starts, the different threads start, you know, knitting themselves. Bill Pullman was, you know, absolutely great as Fred Madison, and Patricia Arquette was absolutely fantastic. Balthazar Getty, incredible. I don't know why all of them aren't superstars. Actors, you know, they're filled with, you know, wonder and imagination, and they get it so quick, no matter how strange a thing is. And their talent is to make it real from a deep place. And when that happens, it's really, really beautiful. Everybody got there in a really beautiful way. It definitely is a kind of a film noir thing, but still it has a different elements going from a straight-ahead film noir. But it has that film noir thing for sure. And, you know, I didn't ever say anything at the time, but I had a fixation on O.J. Simpson, the trial. I think some of this grew out of O.J. Simpson, because here is a guy who, at least, you know, I believe, you know, committed 2 murders, and yet is able to go on living and speaking and, you know, doing and golfing, things like this. And so what does the mind do, you know, after something like that, after a horrific murder and that experience? How does the mind protect itself from that knowledge and go on? And that's interesting to me. And the mind is interesting, you know, for sure. Huge stories in the mind. But that's one thing. And when Barry and I talked about that, how does the mind trick itself so that that can be put in a place where it no longer has that, you know, horrific power, and you go on living? There was a thing that we discovered after the fact, a name of a certain illness, psychogenic fugue, which has a beautiful feel to it. Psychogenic fugue is sort of what the film is. It comes up in people with some sort of illness. And illness is, you know, like a loss or great loss of balance. So sometimes we do things that throw the balance off so much that we're tossed into something like a psychogenic fugue. And that's, you know, Fred Madison. I get the psychogenic fugue almost every afternoon. The idea of the house grew out of my house, because the whole thing in the beginning happened to me. That the intercom buzzer went off early one morning. A voice said, "David?" And I said, "Yes." And the voice said, "Dick Laurent is dead." Now, I didn't have a window to look at right then, so I went from where I was to a different part of the house so I could try to see who was at the, if anybody was leaving the house who had said that. And I saw no one. By the time I got to the window where I could see out, there was no one there. Now, my next door neighbor, his name was David also, because I didn't know any Dick Laurent. And so I don't know what that meant, but that happened. So, and I didn't want to shoot at my own house, so we were looking for a location that had that same kind of difficulty seeing out the front. And I thought it might be easy, to find that, but it was the hardest location to find. And that's when this house that we're having this interview in came up for sale. And it didn't have the right configuration, but it had a good price, and I could, if I owned a house, I could tear it apart and reconfigure it, which we did. And I liked a lot of scenes, I like all of scenes, but I think if we saw a video of a scene that we remember, it would be very, very different from our memory. Reality is huge. It's not anything out of reality. It's just different kinds of reality. And so it just shows you how you remember things is not necessarily the way it actually happened, but it's the way you remember it. And it's maybe even more valid than the actual thing in some ways. Ideas, when you're lucky, they come along, an idea that you fall in love with. Or it's a series of ideas that string themselves together to a big idea, a film, a script, and a big idea that you fall in love with enough to want to go change that into film, translate that into film. And since the ideas are the most important thing, you just follow those ideas and stay true to those ideas, and there you go. It's the same on every film. Even though the ideas are different, the process is so fantastic. And so this Lost Highway was the Lost Highway ideas. And to me, they were cinema ideas, that film can tell those kind of things. And, where there's, still room to dream, and there's abstractions and mood and feelings. And I love Lost Highway for those things.